welcome to Spotlight. I'm Rian Keating. Today we're delighted to have the opportunity to interview Mary Testa, who has just opened in Daughters to rave reviews at the West Side Arts Theater. Mary, welcome.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to meet you. I so enjoyed your performance as Patty Ann.
Well, thank you very much.
What were your first impressions when you read Daughters?
When I first read Daughters, I said, I'm not right for Patty Ann. I really thought I was more right for Tessie, but I was too young. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, I'll never get this. And here's another one down the tubes. But then the more I read it, and the more my first audition, I had to read all of the scenes involving Patty Ann. And the more I read it, the more I realized, well, I guess I could do this, because I do know a lot of people like Patty Ann, and there are members of my family like Patty Ann. So then it became a little more clear.
Now this is an ensemble piece. There are 5 women, and Marcia Rod is in it. Mm-hmm. And did you find you had any ego problems?
Not at all.
Because you seem to work so well together.
No. It was lovely. It was very smooth. Everyone got along. No big problems. No nothing. It was quite lovely, actually. I was expecting, something, but...
Mm-hmm. Well, it certainly shows. What were your first impressions when you saw Patty Ann, aside from that you didn't feel you were right for her? Did you like her?
Oh, yeah. I understood her immediately. Like I said, because I have cousins like this. Mm-hmm. I liked her. I thought she was nice. I didn't think she was dumb, which apparently the director told me a lot of actresses who came in to read for her thought she was a dumb character. And I didn't think she was dumb at all. I just thought she put her energies into other areas. So I guess I don't know. I guess I liked her. That's what I'm saying.
She seems to be a bit Saturday Night Fever type.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, you see them all the time. The women from Long Island and Brooklyn and things. They take so much time with their hair and their makeup and their nails and their jewels, and yet there's always something that's just quite hasn't made it yet. Maybe the eyeshadow was blue or something. I mean, who knows? But that's the kind of woman I think she is.
How did you approach the role? Did you draw on a lot of your personal relatives and friends?
I remember when I first started rehearsals, I wrote in my script, this is a little bit of Sharon, my sister, who is nothing like Patty Ann, but just vocal quality. I wanted to get her the accent. My sister has a very thick accent. She lives in Rhode Island. And so I wanted that, and a little bit of my cousin Karen, who has now 3 kids, and always speaks very softly like this. But I think if you ever got her angry, she'd blow you off the face of the earth, But she always has her voice very high and very light. So that's the only, what was your question again? I forgot.
What you drew on?
Oh, what I drew on, okay, yeah. Yes, so those 2. Mm-hmm. And then the rest was just, sort of as I felt it. I didn't really model it after anyone. Just as you go through a rehearsal process and you get different things from different people, and you sort of have to build a history yourself of this family. And so that's...
Now this is about an Italian family in Brooklyn.
Yes.
And how true to life do you find it? Being
very
Italian?
True to life. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of people come to see the show who are Italian or who know Italians, and they say, I've heard all this. I had a friend come last night who said, there's just a moment where I see a cookie box and I reach in to get a cookie, and instead of taking the string off the box, I just sort of go into the box. She said, I've done that. I do that all the time. So there's always moments that people will react to that they've heard. I've heard this stuff before. I've heard some of these lines before. My family is not as crazy as this family, but the whole cadence of the language, is so familiar to me.
Mm-hmm. How do you find the audiences are reacting?
Very different. This is the first time I've ever been in a show where the audience has been so totally different every time. Generally in a comedy, there are the guaranteed laughs that will come, unless you're brain dead on stage. But this show, people find different things funny. And so we, as actresses, were remarking that we seem like amateurs the first couple of shows we did, because we'd go to say a line, that was, and then we'd pause where there was a laugh the night before, and there'd be no laugh. So we'd have to, like, pick up the pace, start the line again, or then we'd start to say a line in the middle of a laugh. I mean, it was just very strange. Now we sort of have grown to expect it, so it's easier, but people react differently. One night something will get up, they'll howl, they'll roar, they'll roll in the aisles. The next night, they'll just sit. It's very strange. So it's very different reactions all the time.
Do you find it difficult as an actress to be on your toes that much, or does it?
No, I
does
love
it help
that.
with play?
I love that. No, not at all.
Now, Tessie, who's your older sister, played by Marcia Rod, and your mother have sort of reversed the mother-daughter roles. How does Patty Ann fit into all of this?
Well, apparently Patty Ann was sort of, not a neglected child, but sort of, since Tessie was like the father's, it's stated in the play that she was like the father's favorite. When she was about 14, she sort of took over the family because the mother, they had a brother who died, and the mother went sort of crazy, and she just sort of did nothing but cry. And so Patty Ann, I guess, was always shifted around. I mean, I don't think that anyone paid special attention to her, so she sort of made up imaginary games and friends, probably, and things like that. I think Patty Ann decided that, forget it, I'm gonna, when I finally can, I'm gonna have my own family, and and these people will always be around me, and they'll respect me, and they'll pay attention to me, which I think is why she still stays married to her husband, even though she finds out he's, flirting. Can you say screwing around?
You can. This is table. You can
screwing
say.
Around. So I think she's tried for years to fit in, to have like a part of that dynamic, but they just sort of dismiss her. I mean, as much as they all love each other, it's not that they go, she's, get her out, but they pay more attention to what Tessie has to say in the families than Patty Ann, because she chooses to leave. She goes and she marries and she moves, and Tessie still lives there. So she's sort of the outsider, always trying to get in somehow, and offer to do, I'll do the dishes, because maybe they'll like me a little more today. So that's the kind of character I think she is.
But as it turns out, by the end of the play, she seems to be the strongest character.
Well, I think they're each strong in their own weird way. I think when I first read the script, I thought Chetta emerged, the young daughter emerged as the strongest. But I think they're all strong in different ways. I mean, I think if you put them out all by themselves, they'd all survive, which I think is the point of the play.
Absolutely.
One of them, anyway. So I think that they're all strong. Patty Ann just has her strengths in different areas.
But it seems Patty Ann is a role model for Chetta in some respects.
Well, I think they get along really well. Like, they have fun together. I don't know if Chetta uses her as a role model. I think they gain some sort of respect for her after they... Well, I don't want to give away the whole storyline of things for those of you who haven't seen Daughters. But I think they... by the end of the play, they gain a little more respect for her because they think she doesn't know what's going on. When they find out she does, I think they feel a little more like, well, I didn't know she had it in her, that kind of thing. But I don't know if Chetta uses Patty Ann as a role model. I don't know. You'd have to have Chetta on
I guess.
and ask her that question, yes.
You have a wonderful moment where you're calling your husband to see if he's home, and everybody's looking at you, and the audience feels like voyeurs.
Yes.
Because we know something we think you don't know.
Right.
Do you find not having any lines and doing something physical more challenging?
No, I started out, believe it or not, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but when I was just getting out of school, I wanted to be a mime. Oh, God. These days, I mean, mimes are out, okay? Mimes are out. And these days, that's sort of an embarrassing thing to say, but no, I don't find, so I've had all that training, and the reason I stopped, I said, this is ridiculous, I can't talk, I can't say anything. But, no, that's just, there's, you can get as much out of doing, like, the grandmother. I mean, you can get as much out of doing something and not having a word to say if you had it, to be or not to be to say it,
Did you find it surprising that this was written by a man, considering it's so insightful to how women react to one another.
Yeah, I did. But this was written on a family, John Morgan Evans' friend's family. So, and he's Italian.
Mm-hmm.
So that didn't really surprise me in the long run. But it was fun because it was all women backstage crew. Excuse me. Woman stage manager. Director and the playwright are the only men. And sometimes during rehearsals, the stage manager, her name is Susan Whelan, she'd say, "John is in his glory, look at this, surrounded by women. There'd just be women everywhere," and he just loved it,
Mm-hmm.
So, I was surprised at first, but then, the two guys involved, the director and the playwright, are very sweet, very sensitive men who seem to, I don't know, get it. I don't know, So, so it wasn't a surprise after a while.
You have a wonderful set on top of all this.
Oh, gorgeous set. Oh, Kevin Rupnick. Kevin, what a buddy. He's very wonderful.
I was talking to my camera person and producer, and he said it's very typical because he was Italian.
Oh, yeah.
That you replace something when it needs replacing. So you have all these time elements. But that there's always something to see, and it was...
Absolutely. My favorite touch is the Last Supper painting over the refrigerator, which I think is a wonderful touch. He's a very talented... He did the set for Greater Tuna. Did you ever see Greater Tuna?
No.
Which was a very... it was mostly a character show. It was two guys who did... Here I'm talking about Greater Tuna as you were talking about Donuts. But he did the set for that too. He's very talented. We were very lucky to have him do the set.
And I was talking to a woman in intermission who couldn't get over that your baby's cries were so real.
Oh, no, yes. Oh, yes, the baby. The baby is a sophisticated piece of sound equipment designed by Tom Gould and operated by Chris Sloan, who has since fixed the baby for me because he used to look like he was bent in half. It is a speaker with a baby doll head stuck on it so that I have something to relate to, which was awfully nice of them. And sort of like this strange thing that sort of comes out the bottom. It's all square and wrapped in a blanket. The sound is... Are you asking me how this baby is operated?
Absolutely.
Okay. The sound is a regular sound cue from the booth, operated by, called by the stage manager, operated by Chris Sloan, our sound man. And he just calls the cue and the tape, the tape from the booth, and then it just comes out of the speaker and it's a child. That's how it's done.
Well, it's a wonderful effect.
It certainly is. And people go crazy. They want, "That's not a real baby, is it?" "No. Maybe she's pushing a button." No one can figure. It's amazing. I've had people stop me as I'm leaving. "How did that baby work?" That's all they want to know. So, yes. And a very sophisticated piece of equipment.
Well, it certainly seems to be. Your set also smells, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, the stove works. And the lasagna and all of the food that is being cooked is actually being cooked on the top of the stove because it is a working stove. So the sauce is simmering through the entire first act, and the show opens with onions and garlic being fried in oil, so that scent sort of wafts up there. And there's cooking going on constantly.
Well, this seems to be a new thing for theater. There was another show, I don't recall the name, that employed the same technique.
Yes, I think it's Sentorama. I think it's I like it. Yeah, I saw a show at what was it called? Oh, One Man Band.
Yes.
Is that the one you're thinking of?
No.
They did a beautiful thing where there was, this man did a lot of characters, and one of his characters was this old sort of Victorian lady. And before he got ready for this character, someone walked across the stage and just sprayed lavender. And by the time the character had come out and started to be the character, this lavender had sort of wafted up into the audience so that you immediately knew who this lady was because you smelled your smell memory is very important. And very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very sharp. Well, it's not really it, but acute. No, that's not it either, but you know what I mean. And so I think that that's a really nice touch in the theater because that brings you to another place faster than hearing a line or you know, seeing a period costume or something. A smell makes you think of different, you know, things. So I like being around it. I don't smell the food anymore, though. It's funny. But you say you can smell it now?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, because I guess you get around it. I don't really smell it.
How did you become interested in theater?
Well, when I was about when I was about 2, I used to entertain company by, you know, like running through the house and somersaulting, and, you know, they would applaud and stuff. And from that moment on, I guess I said, I like this. So I always sort of knew it. I don't know how, I just did. Actually, when I was in high school, I said, well, should I be an actor or should I be a lawyer? And because I figured you'd have to have some of both, or both. And I thought, lawyer, I have to go to school for how many years? Nah, I'll be an actor. So that's what won out.
How did your parents react?
It took my father a while. My mother was always very supportive because she used to be a singer. And her father, they were like, it was my mother, my aunt, and another lady who did this. They were called the Gay Sisters, and they in the 40s, and they sang very much like the Andrews Sisters. And they had won this contract in an amateur contest to tour with a big band. And they went home to ask their father, and he said no. And that was that. I mean, there was no debate. So she's always been very supportive to see, I guess she's vicariously, you know.
Yeah.
Go, just do it, you know. So, and my father would come to shows when I was in college, and he'd sit and watch, and he'd say, is all you do is swear? Because I always do the characters, you know. But now he's very, you know, they're both in tune with it, and they're both very supportive. I couldn't be luckier, to tell you the truth. Because, you know, I can't pay the rent, you know. I mean, that hasn't happened to me for a while, but they've always been there for when I've needed them. So they've been very supportive, and I've been a very lucky girl.
You certainly have. You've been in New York for 10 years. What were your first impressions coming here?
I had never lived anywhere else. I lived in Rhode Island. I went to school, I went to college, and I lived, you know, away from home, off campus and stuff, but I had never been out of Rhode Island. It didn't faze me because I'm very adaptable, but I did almost stay in the house for 6 months because I figured I have to get acclimated to this city. I can't push myself too fast or too far, so I sort of, just the first 6 months I was here, I would just sort of stay in the apartment, go for little walks, venture out a little further every day, and then it didn't make any big impression on me at all. I just knew this is where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So I didn't go, wow, or, you know. I did used to like, though, the people, well, the sort of crazy people on the street who talk constantly. I was fascinated by them, and I used to go out and look at them a lot. But other than that, I wasn't bowled over by anything. I mean, I sort of knew that this place was like this.
Did you find it hard to get acclimated as a performer?
No, not at all. I was very lucky in that my first equity job was about, I'd say about a year after I came to the city. And I was not I didn't work the first year. I mean, I was just allowing myself to be acclimated. But I had done a lot of shows in Rhode Island, and they were doing, my first job was the Rose Tattoo at the Long Wharf Theater. They needed Italian women. And I had done a show with Jeff Wanshell, who was a playwright at the University of Rhode Island. He was very good friends with the director. And he said, I know an Italian. And so they called me. And I got a call one day from Paramount Pictures. That's just where they were casting. Mm-hmm. Paramount? What do they want from me? You know, I thought, oh, come on. So I called, and it was, you know, Steve Robman, who was directing this Rose Tattoo. And they wanted me to read. I came, and I was 21. And all the women in the Rose Tattoo, like the neighborhood women, are all older. You know, they're all old, actually, in the script. And so I read, and he said, Dee, you're very young. And at that time, I was now working as a cashier at a restaurant. So he said, well, you know, okay, well, I'll call you maybe, you know. And I just figured, well, I'm just too young. And then he called, and he said, I'd love you to do it. And I was like, woo, great. And that's how I got my equity card, and it was very easy. I mean, and it was, the Long Wharf is a wonderful place to work because it's one of the finest regional theaters. So I was like Little Miss Luckhead, you know.
We'll talk about Providence.
Rhode Island. Providence, Rhode Island. No, it's true though. I think, you know, I don't know. And it's been pretty smooth. I mean, there are periods where I don't work, but I always work, let's put it this way. I'm always doing something. But it's always been very clear. I don't know.
You've also done a lot of musicals.
Yes.
And do you find it harder to do musicals than straight plays?
No, not at all. They're, you know, it's the same. What I find hysterical is that people think, oh, you do musicals? Oh, well, you know, then she can't act. Which is ridiculous. I know almost everyone I know, because I know a lot of people in the musical theater field who have a very hard time getting seen for plays. And they think because you sing, you don't act, which is ridiculous, because you have to be able to act. I mean, the musical theater style and doing a play is two very different things, but you have to be able to act if you sing. When you're singing, all you're doing, you're acting, except that you're singing at the same time. So it's like, I think that's almost harder in a way, because there's a different discipline that comes in. I was saying to everybody, God, this is great. I don't have to worry about singing a song. This is the first play I've done in the city. You know, it's like such a great feeling. There's no responsibilities of having to get the 11 o'clock number and, you know, get them going or, you know, any of that. So actually I'll say musical theater is harder. So everybody out there will feel really, really good. All the musical theater people go, yeah, that's right.
You had understudied Liza Minnelli in The Ring. How did you find that experience?
Very, very interesting. And a lot of fun. And that's all I'm going to say.
Next question.
That's all.
Very good. Everybody will be very curious.
Yeah.
Now, you did your one-woman show called No Shame.
No Shame.
Now, how did that evolve?
Well, how did that evolve? That was in 1982. 4 years ago. My God. At the West Side Arts, funny enough, in the space at Penn and Teller, downstairs. I was doing, I know how it evolved. I was doing Barnum. I was an understudy in Barnum, and I was going crazy. It was Barnum ran for 2 years. It was the end of the 2-year run, and I said, I mean, being an understudy is not an easy position. And you sort of, after a while, start to feel like, well, can I do any of this? You know, am I as good as anybody? Because you're sitting all the time waiting to go on. So I thought, well, I think I'll do... Actually, it was a group effort. It was myself, Fred Gorman, who was my director-producer, and Michael Starobin, who did the orchestrations. And I sort of said to them, you know, we sort of all evolved into, well, let's do an act. You know, it'll be something, you know, towards the last days of Barnum, and I was making money, and I had money. And so the three of us put it together, and that's how it evolved. And
how did you come up with the title?
Because I have no shame, and so it was very easy to come up with the title. That's how actually it was. We had to set up a limited partnership and do all this legal stuff, and we called the partnership No Shame Productions. So we figured that's the name of the show. We didn't advertise it that way, but we've always called it that. That was always the title of the show. But we never said, "Come, you know, Mary Testa in No Shame." It was just like Mary Testa, but that was the name of the show.
Are you a fallen away Catholic by any chance?
What do you mean fallen away?
Have you left the church?
Well, I don't go to church. I'm faithful and pious, I guess, in my own way. I went to Catholic school, though. That's like, you know, sticking a child's hand in the oven and then saying, "You want to go back?" No! So, yeah. How'd you figure that out?
Well, I just sort of had that feeling.
Ah.
Well, Mary, it's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is Rian Keating, and you've been watching Spotlight. Our guest today is Mary Testa, who's currently starring in Daughters at the West Side Arts Theater, and I would suggest you go. She is terrific as Patty Ann. If you have any comments or suggestions for me, you can write to myself in care of Perot Productions, 640 10th Avenue, New York, New York, 10036. Spotlight airs Tuesday evenings at 8:30 on Channel D, Wednesday mornings at 1 a.m. on Channel C, and on Saturday mornings at 11:30 on Channel C. Until next week, I'm Rian Keating. Have a good week.